No, come on.
Okay, for you,
Do
Joe.
it, do it legally. Okay, all right, Judge.
I'm calling to order the Public Works Committee meeting of October 16, 2008. Will the minute taker please call the roll?
Alderman Wesley. Alderman Police.
Here.
Alderman Lewiton. Alderman Shockey. Alderman Cadella.
Here.
Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Coles.
Here.
Alderman Knight.
Here.
I declare a quorum. I make a motion to approve minutes dated October 9, 2008. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 4, treatment plan consultant interviews. And with that, I will hand the floor over to Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Alderman Winger. At the last standing Public Works Committee meeting, staff was asked to contact 3 wastewater treatment plant consultants that staff interviewed in the previous 2 weeks. And in doing so, we have set up the first consultant interview for the City Council. Tonight, I have CMT, Crawford Murphy Tilley, which consists of Bernie Held, John Drake, and Kishna Pagila tonight. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Bernie and let him do some introductions and then continue with the presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you, John. It's great to be here tonight. My name is Bernie Held. I'm from Crawford Murphy and Tilley. I'll be the proposed, I'm the project manager for Crawford Murphy and Tilley on this project, should we be fortunate enough to be selected. One of the things we wanted to talk tonight about was a little bit about the stakeholders and having similar goals, but everyone coming from a different perspective on the job. For instance, from our perspective, the future corridor development is very important to the city. We know that the Thorndale corridor is going to be developed. It's tied in with the western access to O'Hare, so one could expect retail is there. And so I applaud the council for their need to plan and their desire to plan these wastewater services and prepare for that growth that's going to occur. And also your Irving Road corridor, I know that everyone's interested in getting that developed a little bit further. From a wastewater treatment standpoint, the capacity for the excess flow, you have to be able to deal with that. You also have to be able to deal with that new development that I just mentioned. Staff at the plant is looking at the possibility of automating a little bit to optimize treatment, to make sure you're doing a good job with the treatment. So they're looking at it from that standpoint. Energy efficiency, everyone's looking at things from energy efficiency standpoint now, and so we are also looking at that from our standpoint, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then finally, we knew that there was a plan developed for the construction of a new plant, for the possible construction of a new plant, and that this particular project is an evaluation of your existing plants, both the north and the south, to see not necessarily on a dollar for comparison, but for the ability to provide the necessary services for the city and which alternative might be the best alternative for the city. And it may not necessarily be that decision may not be necessarily made on cost alone. So everyone has a different perspective and everyone's coming at it from a different direction. And that's a good thing because that usually ends up with an excellent plan. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about CM&T. Crawford Murphy & Tilley is a civil engineering firm. We're very stable, been in business 60 plus years, very financially sound, so you don't have to worry about any of that. We're a Midwest firm. We have offices in Aurora and Chicago, and we're headquartered out of Springfield. Multidiscipline, we've got water and wastewater professionals, and we have the technical support in-house and our structural, electrical, and mechanical. And we offer the full range of services from planning, design, permitting, financing, et cetera, to do the job. Currently about 250 employees. Again, this little bio on me, I've been with the company for 32 years. I'm a senior vice president and currently serving as the director of water and wastewater services. And again, I'll be the project manager for this project if we're so selected. With me is John Drake, also 32 years of experience. I think we started the same week at CM&T. He's a former president of the Illinois Water Environment Association. He's been involved in virtually every wastewater treatment plant project CM&T's done in the last 32 years, and he would be our lead, he's our lead manager for wastewater process and would be involved in the process on this project. Also with me today, we're fortunate enough to have teamed with Krishna Pagila. Krishna has been involved with the master planning for all the Metro Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago treatment plants for the last decade or so as they upgrade and deal with their capacity issues. Krishna has been involved with the Water Environment Research Foundation. In that capacity, he's been developing industry standard documents for optimizing and upgrading wastewater treatment plants, the very thing that we're talking about doing here. He's also been the principal investigator on a report that is dealing with the sustainable nutrient removal technologies, and that project is also for the Water Environment Research Foundation. Now, there's a full team of people there, and Krishna has been involved in that. And, for this sustainable nutrient, he was the principal investigator, and I'll let him talk about that a little bit later. One quick slide here on our project team, and we went into some detail on our project approach and as we submitted our statement of qualifications on how we would do the job, and so we didn't think that it was necessary to repeat that here, but we're welcome to answer any questions that you may have on that. But we did want to highlight those. We did have a full complement of project team members behind us that provide all the engineering disciplines that we feel that we'll need for the project. Even after the planning phase was done, should it move in through the design and the construction, we would have that capability to do that. That was one of the requests in the request for qualifications. That was one of the things that the city wanted to see, was the capability to make that happen should the plan be implemented. Experience with the issues. I want to talk a little bit about our firm's experience with the issues that we see as Wooddale moves forward with this evaluation of using the existing plants. Plant expansions while keeping the plant in service is very important, and we've done that at half a dozen communities we got shown there listed on the slide. We're also dealing with biological nutrient removal at a number of communities across the state. 303D stream issues. We've dealt with those at Springfield, LaSalle, Salem, and Carbondale, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We do know that there are some 303D issues with Salt Creek, and we feel like we're ready and prepared to deal with those. And then lastly, new technology. New technology is important because one of the things that's happening in the industry is as technology is improving on wastewater treatment things, footprints are getting smaller, things are getting smaller, and that is allowing allowing us to look at different concepts that may fit within the footprint of your existing plants, which may not have been available as long as maybe even 10 years ago, but now these things are available out there. And we've been using those, some of those technologies at various communities, again, that John will speak to in just a little bit. So I feel like we have the experience to deal with this project, and certainly am confident that we can bring this in for you. Would like to ask Krishna to speak a little bit about some of the national trends and some of the things as it relates to Illinois for just a bit here. So Krishna, if you'd speak to those things, please.
Thank you, Bernie. I just want to, as Bernie mentioned, that I've been involved in many national and international efforts through various professional organizations like the Water Environment Research Foundation, which I led one of the largest projects involving 7 different cities all over the country dealing with sustainable technologies for achieving nutrient removal. That's one of the trends that we are going through, where many plants in the Midwest will be required to do nitrogen and phosphorus removal. It's not the question of if, but when. The key is that what facilities do we need now? Are they compatible with what we need in the future? If you go and just build something now and that doesn't fit into the future requirements, then it becomes redundant and you will have to probably spend a lot more money in the future. Here in Illinois, I'm very familiar with the Salt Creek system. In fact, I've done a project for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District at their John Egan plant, which also discharges to the Salt Creek, where the issues are, right now we are studying the effects of removing phosphorus from the effluents of John Egan plant on the water quality in the Salt Creek itself. In terms of nutrients, dissolved oxygen, which is very important for the stream quality. So I think you will see similar type of regulatory demands as you go along. And when I looked at the information you have, your permit, for example, for the wastewater treatment plants is not as stringent as the other discharges to Salt Creek. For example, Egan plant has a BOD 10, TSS 12, and yours is at the 20 level. So when you go through the next permit reapplication, you'll probably see more stringent. It's not a question of again, it's when type of stuff. So not only here, we've been dealing with these issues all over the country. Many watersheds, whether it is in North Carolina or California or in the Midwest. And as John mentioned, one of the efforts this organization called Water Environment Research Foundation did is that how do we systematically upgrade and optimize existing plants? And if they are worth upgrading and our capacity enhancement. So this one slide you see there, it is basically the document, the guidance document, which will be issued by the Water Environment Research Foundation for all the US plants and by International Water Association for worldwide plants. So this is an industry standard guidance document, and I was the principal investigator for this project, which we just finished, and it's in the printing stage right now. Just to add, in terms of the requirements, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at this graph, basically you have expansion needs. Now, your expansion needs are in twofold. One is based upon the regulatory requirements and based upon the capacity requirements, okay? So any facility upgrades that we do must be scalable in time and in space. Basically, if you say that we are going to have this western axis of O'Hare and capacity increases, what happens if you get more capacity needs? If other parts of the area develop much faster as well. So that's something that you can think of in terms of providing the same level of treatment as you have now. But 5 years from now, if the regulatory requirements, particularly like phosphorus or nitrogen standards, are implemented or are enforced, then you have to be able to be compatible with that. So when we do this type of study, feasibility studies, I've been involved in MWRD studies from a plant as small as 2 MGD to 1,200 million gallons per day, the Stickney plant, which is the largest plant in the world, is that we need to set up a plan that allows you to add capacity and also the quality of treatment as and when you need, so that you don't build something up front. So this is a very important aspect. And in the interest of time, I'm not spending too much time on explaining each of those details, but those are some of the needs that you'll have to address. And somebody who sets up a good plan for you will allow you to build as you need. If it's a bad plan, then you probably have to revisit a lot of the facilities, which means a lot of money, both capital and operating costs. So I'm going to turn it over to John to give you some of the considerations that are going to be taken in doing your plan.
Thank you, Krishna. To start off with, in preparation of the interview, or the first interview we did, we, along with, I think, probably all the other consultants, toured your facility. And in so doing, you know, what we're doing is looking at the condition, and I would tell you that the condition of both of your plants is excellent. And, you know, that's one of the first things you're trying to consider if you're looking at the feasibility of expansion of an existing plant. So what are some of the questions? Well, you know, what's the condition? Does the condition of the facility allow expansion? I think that just the initial tour says yes, it does. Then, you know, you ask the question, well, can you reuse those existing facilities? And we're talking about, can you reuse them as the purpose that they currently serve today, or are there possibilities where you can reuse these facilities for some other treatment purpose? And then you ask yourself, what are the limitations at either one of your plants? And interestingly enough, one limitation is the same. You have restrictions. You can't expand very extensively from a footprint standpoint. Then one of the things you would ask, well, does it make sense to expand both plants, or does it make sense to expand one of your facilities to treat what both plants treat? And if you did that, is there some potential use for the facility that would no longer provide your main treatment any longer? And then the thing that we obviously couldn't look at during the plant expansion is what's the characteristic of your collection system? What's the capacity of that? What issues are associated with conveyance of wastewater between plants? Those types of things. Okay, touching on some more specifics about some of the things that Krishna talked about, there is a possibility you can actually go in and re-rate the treatment capacity of your plant with Illinois EPA. I'll talk a little bit about that later. You're specifically then looking at unit processes. Can they be improved? Can you tweak what your plant's doing such that you can re-rate your facility, which would allow you to take more flow and load without making any improvements, potentially. What's the receiving stream? And Bernie talked about this 303D issue. The stream's impaired. And impaired streams are going to bring in third-party groups, environmental folks, who are stakeholders and have an interest in what you do and what you discharge to that stream.
Mr. Drake, can you just expand just briefly on what 303D is?
US EPA, several years ago, told the states, at least the delegated states, those are the ones that administer their own National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permits, which is what you need for your plant to be able to discharge. They told the states that each state needed to go in and evaluate every water body in the state and determine whether or not those water bodies meet water quality criteria. Okay, well, it took several years for the state to do that, and the receiving streams of the water bodies that don't meet water quality criteria show up on the 303D list. Okay, and so that's what that is. Now, what we're doing now is we're saying, okay, what do facilities need to do? What level of treatment do they need to achieve such that their discharge does not contribute or cause the impairment? Okay, and
Yes.
as part of that listing, they'll cite whether it's phosphorus, solids, BOD. There's many issues that can cause or attribute to your stream impairments.
Thank you.
Then, as you do this, you're looking at financing, and one method of doing that is through facility planning, whereby you can apply for and receive low-interest loan money from the state. There's no grant monies available anymore, but there is a process where you can get low-interest loan money through Illinois EPA. Now, if you pardon me, I'm gonna walk around a little bit here. What we did, okay, we met in preparation of the interview, and we did some brainstorming. Now, we don't know a lot about either one of your plants, but we've been there, and we've got some aerial views. So really, we're looking at this from a footprint standpoint. But we're brainstorming. We spent an afternoon asking ourselves, okay, what are the possibilities for expansion of your plants? Now, we looked at, and I'm only going to talk about this first concept, but we've got three. And Krishna talked on this earlier about the regulatory issues and then capacity issues. So both of these present really a two-phased approach in saying, well, you could upgrade and improve the performance of your existing plants, not ask for any increased load to the receiving stream. That would be phase one. And you do have capacity with your plants, okay? Then the second phase would be that time in which Christian was talking about, where all of a sudden the regulatory issues that are in the future show up. Okay, so you're planning for both. You're planning for growth and you're planning for regulatory changes. So what we've done here, we just looked at, I mean, there's a lot of issues. There are hydraulic issues as well as treatment issues, but we were looking at unit process. And under any of the options, you're talking about new headworks, screening, drip removal, pumping. This particular option, where we looked at the use of vertical loop reactors, which was touched on in your request for qualifications. And under this particular option, we're looking at increasing the depth of the aeration tanks to give yourself more reactor volume and therefore treatment capacity. And we were looking at conversion of one of your existing excess flow units to a secondary clarifier. Well, if you do that, obviously now you've lost one excess flow clarifier, but there is new technology, ballasted flocculation, and what that does allows you to do the same kind of work in a smaller footprint, where you could then achieve treatment capacity that 2 units provide in 1 unit. And as I said, we're talking about, the interesting thing about what we did, we said, okay, let's say we expand this plant to 3.1, which happens to be the combined capacity of your 2 plants. Now we're suggesting, well, if you do that, you don't need a new NPDES permit because you're not increasing your discharge. Okay, but you're improving the treatment performance of the plant. Then phase 2 would take you to this next level. Can you flip that slide? Okay, so phase 2, if you were to run along a phased approach, would take you to 5 MGD. Okay, and we're showing an additional aeration tank with the possibility, and we're showing 2 things here. There's a new technology out, membranes. Okay, so you actually, rather than clarifiers where you settle the bile sludge you're generating in your plant, you actually filter it. And I've got some examples later on that. So this is one of 3 options that we brainstormed that would allow you to get to this 5 MGD capacity that, at least at this point in time, you've identified as a future need anyway. Next. And this is just, okay, concept 2. And concept 2 again has the 2 phases, identical in flow rate. Next slide. So it went from 3 to 5. Okay, and then concept 3 is likewise. And I don't know that you need or are interested in all the specifics of that, but in any case, we looked at 3 options to expand your plant in 2 phases to reach your 5 MGD capacity. Next. So we were focused on the 5 MGD, talking about your south plant. You know, maybe what you would do is use this for only excess flow treatment. Or maybe you would use it for flow equalization, because if you're building 5 at your other plant, you're conveying all your wastewater there. And these are things that would have to be explored and developed in detail and costed. Another option you could do is just say, okay, we're gonna design this plant to treat so many gallons per day, and you limit it to that. So what is that doing? That's just taking a portion of the flow off of the capacity you need at the other plant, and it would be fairly easy to operate because it's constant. The flow rate would be constant. Then you take your peak flows to the other plant. So there's variations there. Next slide. I want to talk about some of the projects we've done and how the experience there relates to what we're talking about here. City of Salem, Illinois. Well, it's got floodplain issues, it's got restricted site issues, but what we did here, we raised the water level in the aeration tanks to gain capacity, like I was talking about in that option 1. This also discharges to a 303D stream. City of LaSalle. it's basically loaded with new technology. This is a membrane reactor plant that's doing nutrient removal. It's been designed, the permit has been applied for, it's been through its 30-day review, not constructed yet. The real interesting thing about this facility is it will discharge to a 303D stream. It's impaired. Now, it's one thing to try to expand a permit that discharges into a 303D stream. It's another thing to try to get a new discharge, which this one is. We met with the Sierra Club, we met with Prairie Rivers, we discussed the issues about the impaired waters. We got letters of recommendation, actually it was a combined letter, from both those organizations supporting this particular project. So, not only do we have the expertise locally in our knowledge of your receiving stream, we've been in the arena and we understand the issues associated with permitting these types of plants. Next. This is a Spring Creek plant in Springfield, Illinois. Much larger, it's a 32 million gallon a day proposed design, but we're looking at biological nutrient removal at this facility. They're going to have a phosphorus limit. One of the key issues here was a lot of the site was in floodplain, and so that issue had to be dealt with. Next. This is a plant in Peru, Indiana. It has vertical loop reactors, somewhat of a new technology. It also has a process called Cannibal. It's a biosolids reduction process, which reduces the amount of biosolids you'd have to be land applying. That's also a possibility for your plant. Put this slide in here. This is in Oregon, Illinois. It's a package plant. So we were also looking at a Cannibal facility that's a biosolids facility. But in so looking at that, we needed to modify their current plant. So we do have experience working with package plants like your South treatment plant.
Thank you, John. Well, where we are, I think what we're trying to tell you is that we started out talking about stakeholders and different perspectives and things coming from different directions. And so we believe, we've looked at the plant, we believe that there are certainly a lot of options available to working with your existing facilities, and we can give those a very close look and make sure that, that you take advantage of those things. If your plant's in good shape, if there's ability to expand it, there is a good possibility that that could be the way that the direction you may want to go. But to look at the plan, as Christian is saying, to look at the plan and develop a plan that will be able to grow with you, to move as the development moves, that would be an important thing to develop in the plan. So with that, what I've shown you today is that we have significant experience. We have significant experience in evaluating facilities and in working with planning documents across the state. We've enhanced that by having Dr. Pagilla on our team here, who has a wealth of experience nationwide and in Illinois. We have experience with new technology in the various places that John talked about, both with VLRs, the membrane reactors, with solids destruction process, which just about any operator will tell you they spend about 80% of their problems are in solids handling until it rains. But and then UV disinfection, we also have experience in that. We have experience in regulatory coordination. We can bring that advantage to the table. We have good relationships with the Illinois EPA, and we have successfully negotiated with third-party groups. So we have an experienced project team. We have an excellent track record, and we have a strong interest in your project. And so with that, I think we'll take any questions that you may have right now. We're very interested in developing a plan that will work for Wooddale as you expand that corridor and get some businesses in out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, can you give a brief overview of timeline? So when we say, when we all agree to start, then about how long would the process take?
Well, I think that there's some issues. There are some issues that were brought to our attention, and I don't exactly recall what was driving that, but it looked like there was a need to have have the plan in place by the end of March, and we feel like we can meet the end of March. We've looked at that and don't think that's a problem, assuming that something happened in a reasonable time frame here on a go-ahead, notice to proceed or something like that.
Okay, so in other words, the
3-4
finished
months.
product,
3-4
the
months.
deliverable would be completed at the end of March?
3 or 4 months, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, on a screen right before this one, I saw an SAP grant, and that there was a bullet SAP grant, and I'm just wondering what that was.
Which one?
State grant, the state grant.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's a state grant.
Okay, now, is that something that we might be able to qualify for as well, or is that a
It
total
was
different project?
it was a line item, a congressional line item
Okay. Gotcha.
grant
Okay,
is what it was.
thank you. Okay, any questions, comments for, okay, I'll go down the line then, okay. Alderman Pugliese, do you have any questions, comments?
So basically, you guys are saying, right now, we're at 3.2 million between the two plants.
Yes.
So we could expand the north plant to 5 million gallons. I don't know how many million gallons does the south plant take by itself?
The design number on that? I don't recall that right now, what the south plant is.
Design
1.8. 1.8.
The current flow to south plant right now is about 500,000 or 500,000. Its design average is around 1 million, and its design maximum is 2.3 million gallons.
So if we expanded both of them, are we saying we're 6 to 7 million gallons now?
I think there's a possibility of that, the way we've looked at it. Now, understand, we've been on there, we've been to a site tour, we've got some aerial photographs, and we've got a wealth of background knowledge and experience, and it does appear that we think we can make that happen, yeah. But that's the reason you're studying it. You know, we don't want to jump to the answer because there may be things we don't know about. That's one of the things in our approach. We went to this workshop approach where we bring in staff, we bring in city representatives, any stakeholders the city would like, and we work out all that information up front so that we know as much information as possible about that plant. And then we start from there, okay? Oh, yes, please.
I think the capacity Bernie is talking about is if your permit remains the same. So when you apply for NPDES permit renewal,